shifting some of our funding through the library space to be able to support that innovation lab. In addition, we are partnering the what's happening in the innovation lab with our science curriculum and our science lab, making sure that we have those S, T, E, and M of STEM, all of those different things. So those engineering and technology pieces in our science curriculum. And we're very lucky to have staffing that can have the knowledge and expertise to support that. Uh, in addition, the same as what Laura was talking about, is that healthy learning environment. We want to be sure that we have our school psychologists and our social worker really supporting our general education classroom teachers with those tier one interventions for SEL lessons and maintaining those positive relationships so that our general education population knows that we have those resources, because we do know that students who are happy and healthy are also successful academically. So we want to make sure that we are maintaining both the academic high standards and that of overall wellness for our students. And I will hand it off to Jason at the middle school unless you have any questions.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited and proud to be here. I want to talk a little bit about Weston Middle School. So, as you know, middle school is really a bridge between childhood and adolescence. There's a big focus in our school on academic work, but there's also a social component to learning as we, work to develop the intellectual, social, and emotional components of our students. Um, in terms of our enrollment, we are going up slightly as a school, and that's really connected to we have a sixth grade coming in that's a little larger than our eighth grade that's leaving. Our class size remains pretty much on par. Um, as Laura mentioned, staffing is really the backbone of our work here, and our our budget request really keeps in place our teaming model. So we have 24 sections in grades 6 through 8, and allowing us to keep our staff the way it is will allow for that model to continue. The importance of that model is around the interdisciplinary nature of our work. It also is around supporting adolescents and making sure that every student in our school is known and heard. The model also allows us to keep our academic workshop in place. So every teacher teaches an academic workshop class that serves as an intervention component. It serves as a place for executive functioning development, and it serves as a place for enrichment of the curriculum. So we appreciate the ability to keep doing that work. Um, our general music classes are going to continue on a semester-long basis in grades 7 and 8, which will also allow for students to experience things like art enrichment and tech enrichment, which again, if looking at middle school philosophy and the middle school model, just develops different components of our students. Um, in terms of digital learning and technology, Dan DeVito talked a little bit last night about the 6-year tech plan and replacing staff laptops. I just wanted to highlight a lot of our teachers are starting to get involved and really think about AI and how that applies to their work. And having a new laptop obviously will help them with that. So we appreciate that. In terms of a healthy learning environment, we continue to support our Connect Advisory program, which we do twice a month, and our social emotional learning work, which is a big part of our school and has been accelerated this year um, through our work with No Place for Hate, has been accelerated through our community meetings that we're doing. We also, again, with middle school model, we continue to offer a variety of clubs and after-school activities as a result of our budget request. That includes things from park and rec, like archery and floor hockey, but also includes other clubs like Dungeons and Dragons and chess, and we have a birding club here as well. Again, just supporting middle school students and the development of middle school students. We also continue to promote a distraction-free environment. We have our Yonder pouches. So our students, while many of our students do have phones, they are put away for the day, which helps them focus on their academic and social development. So again, pleasure to be here and appreciate your support this budget season.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. going to represent the high school this morning. Uh, so the high school budget really continues to maintain all of the growth that we've made over the last few years at Weston High School. This budget really wants, again, as I've said, to maintain the rigorous and dynamic programming we've had over the years and continue to offer students that choice that we feel is really significant for students as they make their way through high school. We know in ninth and 10th grade, often schedules can be more prescribed. And as students age into high school, we want to ensure that they can make some choices in terms of their program going forward in their post-secondary experience. So the high school budget really maintains a lot of the goals that we have set over the past few years that have led to a significant reduction in our chronic absenteeism rates. As you know, we were ranked the #3 high school in the state of Connecticut by U.S. News and World Report this year. We like to also look at that and say we're really the #2 public high school in the state of Connecticut. So kudos to our staff and our students here at WHS. So our goal, we've put some things in place over the last few years. We want to maintain the student support specialist, which has really been instrumental, one, in engaging our students who can be more vulnerable and maybe at times resistant to schooling. And that student support specialist has really been instrumental in fostering those relationships and also building bridges between students and their academic teachers as well, and supporting our multi-tiered system of supports, leading those team meetings. So we want to continue to maintain that plan. As you know, over the last couple of years too, we have kind of reinvented what our math and literacy spaces look at the high school. We now have 2 dedicated spaces, our math lab and our literacy lab. A component of those labs is to ensure that we have places for students who are in our multi-tiered system of supports, who have scheduled supports that are targeted to their areas of need in either math and literacy. Those labs also provide an opportunity for students to sign up to get support and extra help when their teacher is not available, maybe during their free period. And it also provides an opportunity for the math and literacy interventionists, who are also certified math and English teachers, to push into classes to provide an additional level of support within the classroom experience for our students. So this budget continues to maintain those supports for all students at WHS. As you know, the high school scheduling process is an ongoing process in the spring of each school year. So as we continue to take student requests, which begin in February and into March, we will make determinations about which courses are being offered, number of sections, and who's teaching those and all of that. So that is a process that we continue to work throughout the spring semester. You can see in digital learning and technology, Mr. DeVito spoke to that, replacing all staff laptops. And then our healthy learning environment. We've done a lot of work on this over the years. As Jason had said, we are cell phone free here at high school. While we don't have the pouches, we have a unified effort across all of our staff to maintain that cell phone free experience with our students. And it has really changed the conversations in our free spaces, in our cafeteria. And it has also provided a distraction free environment and taken that burden and pressure off of our teachers in the classroom. So we're really proud of that. And we're really proud of our students for how they have engaged in those new rules. We're going to continue to support PACT, which, as you know, stands for Positively Achieving Community Together, our advisory program here at the high school. A couple of years ago, we transitioned into having a once-a-week 30-minute PACT. We're continuing to work in that structure and use that for multiple purposes. And so really part of the growth in a healthy learning environment is continuing to support all of those extracurricular activities and supporting the portrait of the graduate work that students do throughout their high school career, which culminates in their portrait of the graduate portfolio. And PACT is one of the ways that we help to ensure that students are continually working to prepare for that discussion, as many of you on the board have participated in those panel discussions in March, which will be coming up soon here. We also continue to provide a rich co-curricular program. We have over 80 clubs and clubs continue to be added. We have some kids trialing some clubs. With the launch of Sandy Hook Promise, the app and the website that we've launched this year, the anonymous reporting system, we have students who came to us and who are really interested in creating a Save Promise Club. So we always want to make sure that we're responsive to the needs, desires, and interests of our students. And our extracurricular and co-curricular clubs are one way that we really ensure that we're always listening to students and their voices leading the way. We find our best success when we listen to our kids. And as always, we maintain a very robust interscholastic athletics program that includes 32 sports. So we're very excited for the years ahead and to maintain these amazing programs that we've continued to support and have put in place over the last couple of years. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you to all the principals for giving us a basic overview relative to your budget narrative. David, there was no questions that were submitted through the Google form, not surprisingly, between last night and this morning. But I thought that we could entertain some basic level questions from board members or any clarifications that they may need relative to anything that was shared last night as part of the presentation, shared from our building principals this morning, and or is in existence in the budget binder books.
That sounds good. So I don't know if board members, any questions?
It's early days with this 250-page lovely binder, or lack of binder. Some of us got it electronically, to still digging through it and trying to make sense of everything. But I just come from this morning, one quick question. Can you touch a little bit more, Megan, this is for you at the high school, the student support specialist. You talked about this person, I think it's a 0.5 FTE that we have for the student support specialist. Can you define what department does this individual fall into, and how is this differentiated from some of the other roles within that department?
Sure. So this person is a 0.5 science teacher and a 0.5 student support specialist. So that office is housed in our main office. So when you come into that front door of the main office, that is where this person's office is and where she resides. I don't know, let's see, where would it's on my high school budget. So in terms of the department in which she falls into, I don't know that I would categorize her in a specific department. She does work very closely with pupil services team. So she is coordinating with the assistant principals, she's coordinating with the CILs, she's coordinating with teachers, and takes essentially referrals from the larger school to meet individually with students, connect with families. She chairs the multi-tiered system of support meeting. We just had a meeting this morning where she was chairing that to look at how we can further support our students who don't already have a plan, but we see that they might need some supports to help them out. I don't know if that answers your question. If you're asking specifically about a department, I can't name a department, but I would say she's pupil services adjacent.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how this differentiates from the guidance the guidance department, and how the responsibility of the student support specialist falls outside of what they would be doing in guidance. I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
Sure. So the multi-tiered system of support team meets regularly at the high school. This person chairs that multi-tiered system of support team and coordinates the supports that are provided. The counselor is one of the members of that team that may provide support to that student in addition to what they're already doing in their typical counseling role. There is also an academic, more so an academic, as well as the social, emotional, and behavioral support, but an academic component as we review the data, whether it's data that comes out of, students' grades, or maybe it's a ninth grader where we've reviewed the NWE data and we've determined that students need particular targeted support. So she helps to work one-on-one with students and also helps to coordinate the scheduling of that student, oftentimes in our math lab and our literacy lab.
Okay, so in this student support specialist is specifically to the high school only, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess the multi-tiered program that we have would fall under Tracy. Is that correct? Or no? How does that? Can you explain a
So
little bit?
multi-tiered system of support is really intended. I know that Dr. Henkel also leads this work across the district K-12. The multi-tiered system of support is to really help to identify students who may need an extra level of intervention outside of their classroom experience or extra help that might be provided within the classroom.
So how does
Sharon, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
Tina did a presentation at one of the recent curriculum subcommittee meetings
Okay.
where her team did like phase one of what the multi-tiered system of supports looks like pre-K to 12. And it looks very different because of the structures, the systems, and sort of the school personnel at each level. But for the high school, this person is 0.5, the coordinator of the MTSS, and 0.5 science teacher.
Right. No. Without a doubt, it sounds like a wonderful position. Don't get me wrong. It sounds like something that we definitely want to make sure we're including in our district to make sure nobody falls between the cracks, that, student special needs are being met. My question is, how is it that, is there any possibility that we could, and again, this is not a huge number. So I'm just asking because we have to account for every penny, right? So I'm just asking if there's any possibility that rather than making it a 0.5 FTE, if it could be rolled into another role, maybe more closely aligned with guidance or something along those lines. So that's my only thought. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Can I?
Oh, I was just going to interrupt. I just want to know how many students that the student support specialists support.
So we have a certain number of students in tiered support currently. It is a small number. Let me just see. Let me pull up that number. I'm going to provide you the numbers for students who are actively in specific supports and referrals. But this number does not represent the total number of students that the MTSS person is working with. These are the numbers for students who are actively in like math lab or literacy lab support currently.
But I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to know the MTSS, those students who are in support, because that's a placement issue. I want to know how many students that the student support specialist is actively engaged with.
Outside of students who are placed in the math lab or literacy lab?
Yes,
Okay, I'll get you that number. I don't have it offhand right now.
thanks.
What I will say, Lisa, is that number is evolving. So that number can fluctuate daily based on the referrals, based on, counselor referrals, teacher referrals, but I can get you that number.
Thank you.
I think it's also important to note that I hear, Sharon, what you're saying about could this role be embedded into counseling? Each of the counselors has their specific caseload. This specific 0.5 role is really the person that is like the umbrella to all of those. So pulling that all together. The counselors may be a part of a student's multi-tiered system of support plan, just like a literacy lab, just like one-to-one meetings with the student support specialist. They also help our more vulnerable populations of students who may be resistant to school. So there's just it's a multifaceted approach and a pretty dynamic position here at the high school. I think we also have to remember when you look at student schedules at the high school, the flexibility necessary to help support students is really essential because no student has the same schedule. And so trying to work with students, in a way that we can best serve them and individualize our supports for students, which is really one of the hallmarks of a Weston education, is really vital. And that's also another component of this multi-tier or this student support specialist.
But that almost makes the argument that it should reside in guidance, because if you have someone who's teaching science half time or part time and then doing this part time, then their availability is going to be limited by their classroom time, right? And that because the person that we have doing this student support specialist now is, you mentioned earlier, is half this and then half science, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Can I maybe create a little bit of a distinction and clarify a little bit the role of the school counselor? Because I think that's part of this conversation. So I don't want to oversimplify it, but what I think Megan is describing, and Megan, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. The student support specialist is looking through the lens of MTSS, I would say with an emphasis on the academic components of MTSS, math, language arts, etc. Our counselors are, yes, supporting general education students. Their primary responsibilities are around the social, emotional, mental health well-being of our students, and they have a variety of additional responsibilities that have nothing to do with this support specialist position. They are case managers to students who have 504 plans, for example. They are navigating crisis situations with students. They are working on scheduling. They are working in conjunction with the college and career counselor. So I think this is the role that Megan is describing is more of an academic role, which is why it's staffed by a teacher, versus the role of a counselor is more around all of the other aspects of a student's school experience. So I don't know if that is helpful or not.
I think it is helpful, Tracy, because I think what we need to view it as a coordination of bringing all of the supports that a student may need together and not losing sight of the academic side. And doing that in a very systematic and personalized manner that requires high levels of touch. Excuse me. One thing I really noticed here in Weston is that the district really prides itself on this idea of personalization and these high levels of touch and support and the accessibility that students and parents have of the staff members and the support staff that are available to them. I've heard it conveyed at PTO meetings. I've heard it conveyed at some presentation meetings to the Board of Ed. I've heard it conveyed by individuals at in the curriculum subcommittee. And I think that that is something very unique and important to this community. And so when you have somebody who takes on a role of the coordination of the levels of touch in a comprehensive manner that a student might need, from the academic to the social emotional to the parental and parent engagement, to the executive functioning skills, to the behavior management, to the attendance. I think it's that level of coordination that allows for the efforts to be succinct and really in alignment with the individual student needs, making it very, very unique.
I just help me understand, right? Because, MTS is part of guidance, and guidance works to support academic and emotional strength. And in the high school, we have 4 guidance counselors and a social worker who support the students. The caseload is like 140 students for each guidance, I'm sorry, that's for, it's even less for, they have a very small caseload, why they wouldn't have the time. They know the students, they've worked with these students over the number of years that they're there. They know what they're programmed for, their academics, their parents. And I don't understand why the student support specialist wouldn't be part of the guidance or social workers this job.
Because
I
then you
can
would be sorry, you
go
would
ahead.
be dividing that among 5 counselors. Lisa, I think you might be dividing the total number of counselors by the population of the high school. So we also have a guidance director and the school counseling director. The school counseling director has a lower caseload given the other responsibilities of the school counseling director. So I believe, and I'm going to have to go back and look specifically at those caseload numbers. I had the number. I think that we may be upwards of 160, depending. I know that we have a smaller ninth grade class coming in next year. We're graduating a class of 175, I believe, and we're 165, and we're bringing in a class of 139. So I hear you. You would still be deferring that to several counselors rather than to have this one person. So you would lose the level of coordination and whole systems analysis to provide the key support for the students who need that extra help in school.
But I don't understand because it's the guidance counselor who really supports the student, knows his academics, knows his emotional well-being, and can support MTSS through that knowledge and information. Whether, and it's something that all of the guidance counselors should know, even though you're dividing it, they work together and support each other. Why these few students couldn't be supported by their guidance counselor is something that I would think that they would want to do because they know their students better than anyone else.
I can see where they're actually a part of the team and the importance of the guidance counselors being a part of the team for the MTSS. But you just mentioned, Megan, you have a guidance coordinator. List the people in the guidance council in the guidance office. You said there, how many are
We
there?
have 4 school counselors.
Okay.
The 5th school counselor has a reduced caseload because she is also the director of school counseling. And we have a college and career counselor.
Correct. Okay. So would the director of school counseling, would that not be a natural fit for her then to become the person who oversees the coordination of this?
I don't believe so. I believe that this is a 0.5 position at the high school and that you would be putting another significant layer of responsibility on our school counseling director.
Okay.
I thought you
And
were a
I,
social worker as well.
I'm sorry?
I thought the high school has a social worker as well.
We do
Yeah.
have a social worker, which is not part of technically our school counseling department. That is part of our overall pupil personnel department. We have a social worker and a school psychologist who run groups, do one-to-one counseling, and we also have a social worker who supports our Pathways program.
so if I can just chime in again, I think we're mixing a number of things together that don't necessarily fit together in the same way that you might be thinking. So I understand that in having this conversation, we're thinking a lot about numbers of high school students, but I do think it's important for budget context and for a discussion about guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, and other providers that despite any declining enrollment anywhere in the district, we have seen a steady incremental increase in the number of students who qualify for IEPs and 504 plans in this district for the last 6+ years. It is not unique to Weston, but it is certainly noteworthy. So just so you have some context, because we're talking about providers now who are not only supporting general education students, but they are also supporting students with 504 plans, and they are also supporting, in many of these cases, students with IEPs. Just for context, in 2018 in Weston, we had 249 students with IEPs, right? I understand that our enrollment at that point was higher, but there were 249 eligible students. In 2024, that number district-wide was 323. We are still below the state average, which is around 17.9%. We're in the 14.5, 15% range. So I'm not concerned about over-identification, but that is a significant increase in the number of students who are receiving special education services. We also have, in addition to that, and our social workers and psychologists are supporting students with those plans, and in some cases, our counselors. We also have 278 504 plans district-wide. 180 of those are at the high school. And in some ways, I can't speak for every district, but in some ways, Weston is unique in that the school counselor is serving as the case manager for those 504 plans. If we average it out, it is not a perfect average, but that's 36 plans per counselor. That's 36 annual review 504 meetings. That's facilitation with classroom teachers. That's working with families. And that's in addition to all of their other responsibilities, which we haven't even kind of delved into yet. So I just want to put some context. There's a lot of talk about less students in Weston, and there are more students in Weston, not just percentage-wise, actual concrete numbers of students who need more intensive types of support across all of our buildings, especially at the high school. So I just want us to be mindful of that as we have these discussions about both general education and PPS staffing.
Thank you, Tracy. And thank you, Lisa and Sharon, for your thoughts and input. I think this conversation and discussion gives us some good information to go back and reflect on, take a look at some roles and responsibilities, and think about ways we can create some efficiencies. So we do appreciate the input here.
Can I just add to what Tracy said, just from the legal standpoint?
Yes.
Professionals who are working with children with special needs and disabilities have a lot on their plate. And also, as Tracy has mentioned last night and in previous meetings, and Phil as well, has every year a lot fluctuates in PPS depending on the students who are under the purview of PPS. It changes from student to student. So for example, there is going to be an additional one-to-one para because there is a specific student who is coming into the district who has that need. And we are legally required to support every single individual student. So if we overburden the people or the professionals who are working with them, then they are not available to provide the individualized support that is required by law. And then that becomes, we're not supporting the student, which is first and foremost the most important, but it also becomes a legal liability for the school district.
Thank you, Nicole. We appreciate that. Are there any other questions?
I have just a couple of questions I wanted to get out into the public, but I'm not necessarily looking for a response now because I think that they require going back. So I'm going to put them into the Google sheet, but I just wanted to at least get it out among my the rest of the administration and the board members. So the first thing I was going to ask for was, can you model one less section? And this comes up every year, so this is a bit of an exercise, but can you model one less section across K5? So both HES and WIS, even if the numbers are beyond our guidance, it'd be nice to see that. It helps to put into perspective why we're running the sections we're running. At the fifth grade, I know we use the teaming model, So if we were to remove a section, that would be, I believe, the equivalent of removing 2 sections. Is that correct? Okay, so that's probably dead on arrival, but the next part of my question, and Erica, I'll email these to you as well. So then my next question is relative to teaming model, especially in the 5th grade. Do we have some data that backs up the value of the teaming model at 5th grade in WIS? I know we use a teaming model at the middle school. So if we can't, if taking 1 section out of the 5th grade requires taking 2 sections, it blows up our guidance or number of kids in the classroom. So some data around the teaming model and how it's it's the upside to that, especially in the 5th grade. Then for the high school, is there a minimum enrollment that we look for in, for example, the elective courses, that once that minimum enrollment, or once you're close to that minimum enrollment, is the class looked at to be dropped? I know, Megan, from years on the board, we've talked about classes that might have low enrollment, but that's sometimes due to just shifting interests among the student body. So is there some sort of trigger that you look at enrollment, and even if there's not a replacement course due to student interest, is there some kind of trigger that a course has low enrollment, low interest, and therefore it gets dropped? And then my last question is kind of a bigger question, probably for you, Erica, which is it would be helpful to know, when does declining enrollment show up in the budget? And so what I mean by that is that, I'll go back to kind of the way the private sector operates, right? If the private sector is providing a service and there's less demand for that service, you generally see a scale back in resources providing the service. So it would be helpful, I think, for the community to understand kind of the way you opened up the conversation, which is that to continue to provide the one-on-one, the individualized education, the what we do today, why with declining enrollment, we're not seeing some sort of offset with the number of people providing the services to the students. So I know that's a lot. I just, I'm not looking for any answers right now, and I will email those to you, but I wanted to at least get that out among the group, just to kind of let you know where some of my questions were. And by the way, Sharon, if you got the right people, you can get a book. And so the book is still available in hard copy. Nicole as well.
Just doing my best to save the earth. Go ahead.
So kind. Thank you, David, for those questions. Obviously, we'll need some time to prepare some responses. But just as a little snapshot, Laura does have some of those numbers available relative to the reduction of sections, if you'd like her to just sort of showcase that at this moment in time as an example of what it would do.
I would be happy to. David, I know you, this is something you and I talk about every year. I feel so strongly about those early elementary years being really a critical foundation for what we set up for the district. So as the students move through the schools, they are prepared and they have all the skills and resources at their disposal to succeed and thrive. And I think we've really shown that that personalization and maintaining what I feel are critical class size guidelines is so important as they start their educational journey. So we look at this every year when we look at how many sections we're going to propose. So if we reduced either K or 1 next year down to 6 sections, we would be starting with classes of 22 and 23 per section. That is not good practice. We're talking about 5-year-olds. So 23 5-year-olds in a class with the level of personalization and support and whole child learning that we need to do is just not okay. It's not a good idea. If we brought down our 2nd grade from 6 sections to 5, we would be starting the year with most classes at 24 or 23. That is, for children at this age, 6, 7 years old, with the foundational skills and the habits needed to succeed in a high achieving district, our students need that support. It is critical. I'm in these classrooms every day and I see these teachers working individually, supporting every child and making sure they have exactly what they need every minute of every day. And children at this age, or 5 to 7 years old, need a very high level of supervision and support. We don't just say, okay, math is over, we'll see you in reading. These teachers are with them every minute of every day to ensure that they're safe, they're supported, and that they're thriving in the education. Just looking at the K1 and 2 enrollments, the current 399 and next year 391, and we're already reducing a section. So we can't go any lower. And I will advocate that. I'm happy to speak to it at every single meeting. We have to start these students off with a very strong, solid foundation in how they feel about school, how they're supported at school, socially, emotionally, and academically. And I really strongly believe that's why by the end of the year, we're looking at 97% of all students, including students with disabilities, IEPs, 504s, that are thriving at our school. And it's because of our staff.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. David, just in terms of declining enrollment, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Last night in my presentation, there was a slide, it was slide 5 on district enrollment. And while we are showing a decline of 52 students, we are enrolling 70 pre-K students. So the decline is actually 34 students over all of the grade levels, pre-K through grade 12. So it's not as significant. And so, unlike a company that may be focused on sales volumes, like a school district success is measured by the educational quality and the student outcomes and the community service and partnerships, not growth for its own sake. So enrollment projections are generally used so we can responsibly plan staffing, facilities, and budgets. When you have 34 students over, 13, 14 grade levels, there's not a significant place where that enrollment is small enough where you can reduce anything in whole. So the enrollment projections reflect sort of like this forecasting. And I think a company's declining demand sometimes is because of lagging indicators of performance problems, whereas like enrollment projections are more forward-looking and preventative. But for us here, think about all of the accomplishments, the accolades, the achievements, what we've showcased throughout the year, and the growth that we've demonstrated. Again, at levels where it's really hard to move the needle. My thought is that because that is personalized, there are high levels of touch, it's individualized, and it's thoughtfully planned and coordinated. When you start to thin those things out in terms of coordination, or you start to increase caseloads, you're going to lose the personalization. You're going to lose the high touch. You're going to lose the accessibility. And so I think we need to really think about what is most important to us. And if our achievements are really a result of those high levels of personalization and high touch and the uniqueness we have here, because we operate more like a private school. And that is really, really at the heart of our school district and community. And we want to keep that, then we need to budget for it.
Hey, Erica, let me jump in here just with a quick question. I think you mentioned this last night. I think you mentioned that Brown and Brown consultancy. So those consultants that help us on the healthcare front would be attending. I think it was you, Erica, would be attending one of these meetings coming up. I believe you said it was on the 15th. Is that correct?
That is correct. Phil, give me a thumbs up if I got the date right. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, I think just stepping back, and I'm still getting through the document, so I will chime into the Google Doc with a bunch of questions, probably towards the end of this week. But when I look just holistically, at the budget itself, I mean, essentially, I'm speaking from memory here because I don't have it in front of me, but essentially, of the $2.3 million increase in the budget, I think, salaries and health benefits are like 2.7 million. And so what that means is that across all of the other various categories, basically the budget is down, from what I can see. And so thereby, what that means ultimately is here, to make any meaningful change here in terms of the impact to the budget. I'm not saying anything that anyone here doesn't already know if they've looked at the numbers. It's those two categories. And I think we're also hamstrung within those categories, by what was negotiated in terms of salaries. And so I'm not sure how much there is there to work through. And then, of course, that leaves the benefits, which continues to be just a big challenge, not only for our school district, but the school districts across the state, and I'm sure across the country. And so we're trying to find a balance here. I think given that fact, the only real sort of issue here in terms of making a real impact to moderating this budget is headcount, unfortunately. And I think, look, I appreciated Sharon's discussion and Lisa chiming in as well in terms of, what's going on with guidance support, because we really do have to dig into these numbers. And I firmly sort of, understand Erica and everyone else, all of the school principals. I understand, what makes us unique, what makes us special is the personalization that we deliver. And part of that is, of course, all the support that we're providing to the school district, with the headcount that we currently have. So I think my questions just will focus on, where can we potentially maybe make some changes on the headcount front, if there are any changes to be made. I appreciate Ms. Cadis's explanation of the sections and how important it is to maintain the number of sections that we have and to maintain class sizes that are somewhat smaller, because of the support those children need. I do think we just need to take a look again, and I'll focus on this. I don't want to go on and on this diatribe, but just on, I don't want to really impact what's happening in the front of the classroom. Are there places, I know, Erica, you and I have sort of discussed this very superficially before this came out. Are there places in which, you all see where we can get efficiencies sort of the administrative side? I don't know. Maybe the answer is no. But sort of, that's my 30,000 foot view as I just take a look at the budget and we struggle with the fact that every year we're dealing with 10%, plus increases in healthcare costs, right? And so I appreciate everyone's patience and listen to my comments there, but I do think when you look at the rest of this budget outside of, again, salaries and benefits, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of fat there. Again, I'll go through the document and see if there are opportunities, and we'll of course ask questions. But it is unfortunate just and how much I think the healthcare costs have gone up over the last couple of years.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. And sort of reiterating, like, there is minimal other places other than headcount where you can make reductions. And that becomes really challenging because when you make reductions relative to headcount, you're forfeiting something else on the other side. And so we've got to weigh that very carefully. And so I really do respect and value your input and your thoughts. And if you find anything in that other 10%, please let us know.
Eric, I have one quick question. So are we as just thinking about the time or this meeting in particular? I know that we queued up the building administrators. I know Phil is here. I have some potential questions for Phil. Is the plan to sort of, maybe have the building administrators do their piece as far as the schools, potentially let them go back to doing what they do best, educating our students, and then we continue on with questions potentially for Phil? Does that work for a plan?
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So maybe I'm just thinking what we can do is as a board is if we don't have any other questions for the building administrators, and for that matter, Tracy, you as well, maybe we can let them go. And then I think, right, because Phil, you'll probably have some portion of a presentation or talk about your budget as the not that portion of the budget.
We could see how everything fits together, David.
Okay.
All right. So it's okay if the building principals.
Can I actually just ask Laura a quick question?
Of
And
course.
Tracy maybe? If you could elaborate more on the staffing shift in Hurlbut, given the departure of the larger second grade and the addition of the new pre-K class, but you also said you're not hiring a new teacher?
So if you look at the K2 enrollment on the chart on the Hurlbut section, so you kind of have to look at the preschool, the ELC, the ELC is our preschool. You have to look at that a little bit separately. So the K1 and 2, we are moving a larger second grade cohort, the 153. Next year, we'll be going to the intermediate school, and we're projected to have about 134 kindergartners. So with that lower section, that lower number, we are reducing a section K2. We have 21 sections in K through 2 this year. Next year, we'll have 20. There is an increase in the preschool, so think about that separately. We have 4 ELC classes this year, 1 next year. 1 more next year, so we'll have 5.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but last night, I don't know if maybe because ELC is different from Hurlbut when you were talking last night, there was no staffing change, even though, right?
So last night was the district-wide. I'll let Erica speak to that, but that was a district-wide overview. This is by building.
Right, but yes, but I thought Erica had said in Hurlbut, there was the addition of the ELC class, but there was going to be no certified staffing change, but there would be a non-certified staffing change with addition of the para.
Yeah, so if you think of it pre-K to 2, up 1 preschool class, we're shifting in the other grades and down a section. So yes, overall at Hurlbut, the number of teachers pre-K through 2 will be the same because we're down a section from 21 sections K1 and 2 to 20 K1 and 2, but we're up 1 preschool.
Nicole, real quick, maybe this will help. So when you look from a budget to budget, it seems as if we're flat. But we made a decision mid-year, right after the budget was approved, to add an additional grade or section to grade 2. So if you look in the actuals, you'll see like actual budget to actuals, you'll see that we're actually down by 1 FTE. So pretty much we added 1 last year, and we're taking that 1 back, and that 1 person is going towards the ELC or the pre-K.
Is
So
that
that's what you see as
hiring somebody new, or is it an existing teacher?
existing staff.
Thanks.
That was a good question. Thank you, Nicole. Okay, if there's no further questions for our principals, I'd like to be able to let them get back to their administrative duties. Is that okay, David?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for
Principals,
joining us.
thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
And then there were about 12.
Okay. David, you said you had a couple questions for Phil. Are they more technical?
No,
To the budget? Oh, okay.
nope. It was just more of like once that we were done with the, individual school, do you want to continue through the budget, like in the next section of the budget? Like,
I wasn't gonna necessarily go through each one of the sections in order. But certainly can start in a section if anybody has any specific questions.
You know what? I don't have a specific question about a specific section, but there's something that I forgot to ask that I should have asked a second ago, but I think Tracy, you can help me out with this. We are adding an additional pre-K section next year, correct? And so how many, based upon in the past, whenever we've had a certain number of pre-K sections, we can kind of figure out what the incoming kindergarten class is going to look like. Is that accurate?
Tell me more about what you mean. You mean kindergarten for the 27-28 school year?
Yes. So if we're adding a section this year, we're going to have does it appear that we're then going to have a larger kindergarten section for the 27-28 school year? Or is that just more identified students, which therefore opens it up to more kids that can be eligible for the pre-K?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm trying to remember what happened the last time we had an additional section. My immediate answer to that is it's not just because we have a higher need in ELC doesn't necessarily equate to a bigger kindergarten class because obviously not all of our kindergarten students attend our ELC program. I can look to see what happened the year after 5 classes related to kindergarten and get back to you.
If you could, that'd be great because that'll just help us with moving forward, staffing, planning at Hess and the other schools as well. So thanks.
Sharon, I think that's a really good question. Definitely increasing the number of sections of pre-K helps like with better predictability about the number of kindergarten enrollments.
Yeah. And we have to keep in mind that the low number of first graders, whereas it looked like a huge hit, it all had to do with the state law, the change of the state law and the eligibility for kindergarten. So we have to keep that in mind when we're making all these plans. It's not as if, our population is dwindling on a daily.
That's a good point.
That's it for me for right now.
but I'll ask a Phil question. This is more of a generalized question, especially on the heels of the bigger facility study that we're doing and the impact. I always say essentially there's two hands that feed the budget of this town, the left and the right hand. You're just moving money back and forth when 80% of our tax dollars go into schools. So my question is on the $2.6 million capital budget, which is very much higher than it has been in the past. And I think we sort of last year, if I remember correctly, I think we asked for about 1.5 million or we wound up back then we thought we would never ask for more. So I guess my question on the 2.6 capital budget is how does trying to think how to phrase the question because it throws off a bit of the planning I think the town is doing on the facilities side. And I know every year it's moving money from the left hand to the right hand, but for example, paving, it almost always shows up in our capital ask, and then the Board of Finance says, no, that's our responsibility, and they take it out of our capital. But from a taxpayer's perspective, you're just moving the money from my left hand to my right hand. So I guess my question on the 2.6 million is, have you had a conversation with, for example, the town to determine two things? How does it impact them when it comes to the study that they're doing, I guess, in parallel with us for facilities in general? And then are there things that are in our capital that we can reasonably expect the town is going to say, no, that's going to wind up being our responsibility?
Well, we have just started it, and I think the first step always is just to have the conversation with the Board of Education in terms of what our needs are. If you think about where we started last year, the initial request last year was significantly more than what we ended up with, right? I think we started out at close to $3 million. And a lot of that had to do with the North House HVAC. But if you look at last year and what we projected that the following years would be, those were significant estimates that we had. Last year, for example, we initially anticipated that FY27 would be around 4 million, followed by 7 million, and then followed by 3 million, almost 4 million. So there's not a lot of things here that the town would necessarily say that it's going to be their responsibility. The paving, for example, as you mentioned, that really relates to paving within the district, pretty much within on School Road, the parking lot and stuff like that, and not necessarily anything outside of School Road and the school campus. So, and we there's a lot of capital needs that we have, and we try to balance out the short term and the long term. Our purpose or our goal is to definitely get to the board's attention those items that are what we consider to be a priority, and then just to get those items done. Because if you look at the requests that we have here, everything here, the majority of this here really focuses on indoor air quality. There's a significant request for roofing repairs also at Hurlbut as well. So there may be some items that we could defer for another year, but deferring it doesn't mean that it goes away.
We're good at deferment.
In my experience with capital, David, and I think you ask a really good question because there's overlap there, right? And so when taxpayers see things in several buckets and it becomes confusing or they believe that there's redundancy there. But in my experience, I think we, as on the educational side, have an obligation to put in our capital request what we actually need. And then that then sort of leads as an on-ramp to more of an open dialogue and conversation with the town as to what they're doing, what we have in our capital that already may be included in theirs. And from there, we can collaborate on refining that. But initially, as Phil stated, as a board of education and as an educational community, I think we need to put it all out there initially.
Yeah, and that's 100% correct, Erica. That was the confusion as to where an item shows up and does it show up twice, and then does it if it shows up in our budget or the town budget, it sometimes artificially looks like one budget's higher than the other, and just from a timing perspective, with the facility study that the town is undertaking along with the Board of Ed, if we're borrowing money for projects, we don't want to have money show up in the Board of Ed that should be, so to speak, part of facilities and the overall debt, for example, to the town for 20 or 30 years. So, but Erica, you're right. There's confusion when things can show up in two different places. Ultimately, it winds up in the same place, which is, for the schools and the betterment of our students, but whose books does it wind up on?
Right. And I think it's really good just to lift that out because I think it underpins something else that's sort of disguised in what we're saying here. And that is earning the trust from the community that both on the board side and the town side, we are working together in concert so that we're creating efficiencies. There are no redundancies. And that while initially our capital request includes this, at the end of the day, it's all appropriately budgeted in the right buckets. And that trust is really important.
Can I ask about the central office HVAC replacement? I understand it's past its useful life, but is the central office the annex?
I'm sorry, Nicole, can you repeat the last part?
What is the central office? Is that the annex?
No, it's actually the building next door, the white building.
Where you all are housed?
Well, I'm housed in the annex, but that's where,
Okay.
yes,
Okay, where Erica is. Okay.
that's
Yes.
Okay, because I was just gonna say if it was the annex, just as kind of as David was talking about, we're talking about this whole facilities improvement, and I don't know, is the central office going to be part of that discussion? Is it not? And so I would just wonder, is that an expense that maybe we hold off until we finalize whatever, we're going to be submitting as part of the proposal for the facilities update? But if we're not,
absolutely. There's no expense or expenditures projected for 27 for the annex.
okay. But okay, so central office is not part of our facilities discussion of facilities upgrade.
It's a part of the total package when we look at the entire facility. So yes, it is a part of it. Central office, meaning the white building, not the annex, is a part of it. And going back to David's point, the entire conversation between the annex is a conversation that we're having with the town because
Yeah,
housed in the annex are staff members for both the Board of Education and the town.
right.
Bill, I know you just muted yourself. I'm gonna ask you another quick question. And actually, it might be more of a question for Jim, but didn't we approve the radio upgrade cost of 120,000 in this year's budget?
We did, and I think what we initially said was that's pretty much just a partial payment because what we anticipated was that going to be funded over 2 years.
Okay. So, and again, this is not very much money in the grand scheme of things, but it's sort of, you start ask ask some questions about things just because, I think we should ask them. So is it 120,000? If we partially paid, is the ask 120,000 again?
The ask for fiscal 27 is an additional 120,000 for a grand total of about 350,000 or so.
Oh, okay. I thought when we talked about this, I feel like it wasn't that long ago, but I think I've lost all sense of time when it comes to these meetings. I thought that it was 120,000 and no, okay.
No, no, we have in our fiscal pretty much partial funding for the project because we did anticipate that this project will run over multiple years. What we wanted to ensure was that there was money to start the project and to put a down payment down on the project. Since Jim came about, he's been working with NORCOM because there was a little bit of a pause in that. So Jim has been taking the lead on working with the communications with NORCOM.
And Jim, this is part of the overall radio upgrade that the PD did as well, right? We're sort of piggybacking a bit on that.
No, this is completely independent and separate from the state project that the police department did.
Just a little bit of a clarification on that. So this project, David, you're rightly so, this goes back several years. Initially, this project was supposed to be a part of that overall state improvement plan. That was the plan that the town would be taking the lead, the town would finance this, so to speak. But there was a change, and with that change, we had to absorb the cost of that capital expenditure. So that's the main difference.
Okay.
And just to clarify, what Phil said, the state project was to go on the state police infrastructure, which is public safety and first responders only. The digital encryption, public schools can't use.
Got it.
That was before my time, but we're cleaning it up and we're almost there.
Okay. Yeah, and just so you know, the spirit of my questioning is kind of very in line with the paving and other things where should the money rightfully be allocated? Should it be allocated to the Board of Education or should it be allocated to the town? Because the more we take on, it's still a taxpayer. It comes out of, my pocket. So I want to make sure that things are allocated into the right place so that when the town looks at their facilities and how much we can borrow and what the debt implication is, we don't wind up taking things into the Board of Education budget that kind of muddy what the real borrow or spend is on these various systems. So thanks, Jim and Phil.
So I have a couple of quick questions. One being a simple, small one: district-wide clock replacement. What's I mean, it's only 75,000, but what is the? Can you give me a little color on that, please?
Phil, let me know if you want me to jump in on this too.
I'm going to leave that one for both you and Mike.
So I just want to make sure. Oh, Mike, you're here. Go ahead, Mike.
How you doing, everybody? Happy New Year. All right, district clocks. We've had a number of clocks start to fail. Some are original to building, some are original to additional high school, at the intermediate school. We're piloting this over to the high school to start to see what we can get. Years back, post Sandy Hook, there was a system that we had purchased, Visiplex. So we had 100, I believe, clocks of battery clocks that we had. So as these clocks have been failing until we got to a capital project, we've been just installing these in. So we have battery clocks in some classrooms, some hallways, some areas, trying to unify everything together. The problem with the battery clocks is daylight savings time. So our guys have to go in, whether it's IT or maintenance or custodial, and reset all the clocks. So the clocks are starting to fail. So we just want to get everything unified onto the system. I believe what we're going to do, this will be it won't be tied into our PA system, won't be tied into our network, just into our Wi-Fi and into our server.
So these are all going to be analog clocks, digital clocks that automatically set.
Yeah, they would be analog. The digital would be awesome to have. The cost is incredible.
Oh, no, I'd rather we stick with analog. I want to make sure they can still read a clock. Some kids
watch, yeah.
You must have seen the news, Sharon, about that recently. How there was, I think it was in New York, where there were kids when they did a cell phone ban in one of the schools. Then they realized the kids didn't know how to read analog clocks.
Yeah, no, I have kids who are doing that. A son who I was like, look at the clock, and he was like, tell me what time it is, and I was shocked. But anyway, so yeah.
I also wanted to piggyback with the clocks too. So we have centralized clock management systems, a bunch of them, like Mike said. But those clock systems in two of the buildings they're so old, they predate the daylight savings time change that happened a few years back. So now the tech department and the maintenance department, they actually have to change the clocks 4 different times manually beyond the battery powered clocks because they go an hour earlier. So they fall back earlier. So we have to fix that. Then we have to fix it when they truly fall behind. Then we have to fix it when they spring forward. And then we fix it again at the old spring forward. So we have so many systems in place. It's pretty maniacal. So this would help unify everything.
Sounds like my microwave. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Then the other question that I have, this is actually a bigger question. We're looking at, for the South House, a boiler replacement and piping. And then also at Hess, we're looking at asphalt roof replacement, totaling about $1,090,000. And my question is, as we're having our facilities conversations, we haven't ruled out that Hess isn't going to be a large part of that facility conversation too. So where does that put us in this, in this upcoming budget? Can somebody help me to understand? I mean, I don't want to neglect any further the buildings than they have been, but at the same time, if we're talking about making doing a large upgrade of sorts, how does allocating over $1 million to Hess work?
It goes back to what I initially said, right? So a lot of the items that we have here and what we have done in previous years. So it's important that we highlight to the board what our concerns are, even if at the end of the day, right, when we get to the vote, we decide that is feasible to shift some of these items to a future year. But I think for our discussions, right, it's important that the board is aware of what our overall needs are. We still do not know as of today what the campus will look like, what buildings will be affected, what projects will be addressed first. So we are mindful of that, but I think we'd be remiss if we did not let the board know truly what all the concerns in all of our buildings are.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just don't see anything here for the middle school at all, with the exception of flexible furniture. So,
right, because in previous years as well, each time we've put stuff for the middle school, we have always replaced that. We've always taken it off or deferred to future years. I think we're mindful, right, especially with the middle school, that the main focus right now is at the middle school. So we didn't want to put anything critical here that would pretty much be, that's for lack of a better phrase, waste of money.
Okay, and thank you for that. On the opposite side of that, um, with the exception of duct cleaning and a turf replacement at the high school, I'm not really seeing anything for WIS in the high school. So if we want to make sure, I'm just trying to make sure that we're covering our bases. We don't want to let anything. These are good schools. They're in pretty good shape, and I don't want to neglect them and find ourselves behind the eight ball with these two schools as well. So, is there anything that we are putting off with those two schools that we maybe need to be mindful of this year?
No, I think from where we are, I think I had some long discussion with Michael about this, and I think we're in a good place, at especially at the West. West is probably close to 20 plus years at this point. So in the near term, we'll definitely have items to put on our capital. What we are doing is that we are going to do, based on state mandate, an evaluation of all our
Yeah.
HVAC system. Once that is complete, hopefully by early spring, we'll have a better sense in terms of what the useful life of all our equipment are, and then we'll start to address those. But I think in the near term, in terms of items that needs to be addressed at the West, I think we're in a good place. At the high school, we have put items there for future years. I think there's from our perspective, a focus on getting the renovation done at the D, and I always get this wrong, Mike, the D and the E wing. Um, did I get that right? D and E? Or
Yeah, we're gonna mirror D wing with E wing, and then next would be C wing.
right. So I think if you've been on a tour at the high school, the wing that was most recently renovated back in 2000, whenever that was, it's a big difference, right? So you take a few steps over the corridor and you see what it looks like. It's a big difference. We've had a lot of focus. So there's a lot of focus of allowing a lot of natural light into the building, and we do not have the kind of natural light that we would need in the D wing.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this topic? Okay. Erica, what would make sense at this point to cover? I know for most of us, we kind of took a first look at it, I think, sometime between last night and this morning. So I don't know if there's other areas you want to cover, or
Maybe this is a good time to pause. And give you an opportunity maybe to use the time to take a look at the book. And really, we encourage you to submit your questions as soon as possible. We're not going to wait till Friday to look at them. We're going to look at them as they come in so we can start formulating responses and collecting the information needed to be able to provide responses in a timely manner. And in the interim, if you have any like just simple technical questions over like the description of lines or anything, feel free to reach out.
Can I ask a quick question that might not end up playing out in the budget, but it's here?
Sure.
In the supplemental tab, you have a list of all the athletics teams. Can somebody tell me what unified sports is and esports?
I can explain unified sports. Unified Sports is a program that we have that allows students with disabilities to engage in athletic activities with students without disabilities. And there are unified sports programs in other districts as well. So we're able to compete and engage in sports activities with our surrounding towns. It's a great program and really an asset to the high school on a lot of levels.
And I can speak on esports. Esports is, yeah, I know, Phil. You're so esports is competitive video gaming, and it's one of the fastest growing competitive sports in the nation and in the world. So there, we've had esports for a few years now, and it's very, very popular. A lot of kids do it. So Yeah, it's competitive gaming like Rocket League and League of Legends, and they have a whole rule and guideline list as to what games they can play, what games they can't play.
Also, just so you know, Nicole, because at first when I heard about esports, I was like, what? We're encouraging this? We're taking away electronics. But the reality is they actually get scholarships for this.
Yes.
So this is this is something that can help like further a child's development professionally as well.
Yep. They give out significant college scholarships for esports now.
Mm-hmm.
And those are both
And from my
local-
understanding, it's super competitive.
Yeah.
those
They've
are
all been
both
training since kindergarten.
sports.
Yep.
All right. So that said, I think here's the plan if I remember correctly, Erica. So our next meeting relative to the budget is January 14th. And normally what we typically do is it's the it's the first of two community forums. And I was from memory, what we typically do is we open up the meeting, we have the community ask their questions, and we typically get low turnout. That's just the reality. And then we close the meeting. What we talked about doing this time was we will, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the plan is we're going to do the community forum as scheduled. And then from that, we'll roll into the questions and answers from the board. So questions that we've asked today that we don't have full closure on, questions that we're going to email Erica after the public portion of our meeting on the 14th concludes. We're just going to roll right into more of the questions and answers section of the budget. Does that, Erica?
Yes, that's sort of what we discussed yesterday morning, you, me, and Deb. And that was just to make more efficient use of that time. But I will say, like, our ability to sort of do that will be dependent on the board's submission of those questions in a timely manner and our ability to formulate responses to those questions. So, it will be dependent on that. So again, get the questions in, try to word them as clearly as possible, so that we know exactly what you're asking.
Yeah, and just a reminder to for the community that might be tuning in now or later, there are two opportunities for the community to ask questions about the budget. We are very much wanting to hear from the community. The concept is to ask the questions just like we did today, give the administration, Superintendent Forty, Phil Cross, and the rest of the administration a chance to answer them. And then there's a second public forum as well. So the concept there is that ask questions, get clarification, and if you still have questions afterwards, there's a second opportunity as well. And then the Board of Ed meets after the public forum to discuss. So there's a lot of opportunities for the community to ask questions that are important to them that we haven't thought of, right? Hopefully we've thought about all the questions that the community might be thinking about, but we really want to hear from the community. Because there are things that we're just naturally not going to think about. So that said, we do have a special meeting just to kind of make it put on everyone's radar. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, that is our standing monthly facilities meeting. And that is remote, if I remember correctly, Jody. And our January 14th meeting, that is also, is that remote, Jody?
That's part of my question. I
Oh,
have them down as TBDs. I do have Zoom meetings set up for them.
so I think we generally do one of our budget meetings remote, one in person. I think that's a good thing to continue.
Mhm. So if you'd like to do the one on the 14th in person, and then the one on the 22nd remote.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Yeah, getting a thumbs up from Sharon. Okay, so then our meeting on our next budget meeting is the 14th. It will be in person. It will be for the community to ask any questions they have. and then we'll roll into more questions and answers from Erica and the rest of the administration. Okay. Then with that said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night, and we'll see you on the 14th.